Hello everybody, welcome to this video. As you can see on the screen, this is basically where I left off at in my last video when I went ahead and started to create digital versions of some logo sketches that I had done for the Luna Marea Yoga brand identity project. So at the end, these were the three that I had kind of finished and was kind of okay about, but I knew that there was still more to be done with whatever logo that or design that I ended up going with. And the one that I did end up going with is this third one here. I did almost go with number one, just the moon of it, but when I was going through the questionnaire answers again, just to try and see like how do these designs kind of match up with what she had mentioned in the questionnaire in terms of what her audience was, her target clients, and then what she wanted as like for preferences and whatnot and all that kind of stuff. I just felt like there was a huge emphasis on the idea of her business contributing to a certain lifestyle. And I thought that number three kind of had more of that lifestyle vibe to it rather than number one. So that is what I ended up going with, or that I kept working on a little bit more. In the last video, I said that one of the things that I wanted to explore a little bit more was the type area. What I had chosen that day, it was okay. It's just there's something about it that I just was like, ugh, I don't think this is the best fit for what I'm trying to accomplish. So you're just going to get a little bit of a sneak peek to this messy board and what I ended up going with. But at first I had found this font here and I almost went with it because what I liked about it was I actually liked the width of it a little bit better. For this first one that went here, I think one of the problems that I had with the font was that it was still pretty narrow, and I wasn't a huge fan of that for this. So I almost went with this, and then I started watching this Adobe Live on creating custom type for your word marks, and I was like, oh, maybe that would be an option to explore with this project, because I'm not really finding any existing fonts that I'm a huge fan of. You know, there was this Americana font here. It was okay, but I also feel like it's a font that's starting to get a little bit overused by a lot of brands, and so I didn't really want to use it, even though in one of these versions I did use it. So that's the only kind of thing with that one. I'm pretty sure I'm calling it the right name here. Yeah, Americana. So for the first version of the font, I didn't actually record myself designing anything. It was one of those things, again, that I thought was like, oh, well, I'll just kind of experiment and see how things go first, and then maybe record myself tweaking things. So this is what I kind of started out with. I went on to different websites, font websites, and just started to kind of go through these fonts and took screenshots of what I liked as options. And so this is kind of what I ended up with in terms of some inspiration for how I wanted to design this new font. A lot of the things that I was kind of drawn to were the curves in some of these letters. So for example, like this one up here, it had like this kind of curve on the G. I also kind of like this little swash kind of a look at the end of some of these letters. Oops, I gotta get back to my little area there. Some of the other things that I was looking at, this was the first font that I was really like drawn to, and it was just very simple. I really like just that kind of little bit in the A here. And I also really like the fact that this R wasn't connected here. So that was something that really drew me to that version of it. And then I'm still getting used to this program, so that's why I only know some quick keys for like zooming all the way out and then zooming in on a selection. So bear with me for that kind of stuff. So some of the other fonts or some of the other examples that I really was drawn to was this one right here. I really like how wide it was, and again it has this disconnected R where the middle where this little point isn't quite connected all the way to the side here. So I really kind of was enjoying that part. But then I also came across some other ones here. Let me see if I had, you know what, oh yeah, like right here, this kind of slight curve in the R. I also really like that part of it. So from all of these pieces, I just started to try something out. I created a little bit of a guide here. I knew that I wanted some letters that were not quite square, but a little bit on the wider side. So I started out with this guideline, and the first letter that I kind of created was the O. And then from there, you can kind of see where I started to go. I have this kind of, nothing is completely cut out, but just so that I could get an idea as to how it looked, I started to build some different letters this way. Kind of started out to create this kind of almost like a C shape to create the G. So this was the first out of two custom type options that I ended up going with. So after I had finished creating the second kind of design, font design, this is kind of what I ended up with. And you know, as I was kind of looking at this and what I came up with, you know, the idea was okay, but now looking at it, it's a little bit too messy looking and not really a direction that I wanted to go with. So I ended up deciding to go with this version. But one of the things that was really bugging me about what I had designed for this type is that there was maybe a little bit too much of a contrast, so that when you zoom out, the thin lines become really hard to read. And because I need to keep in mind that this is for an older client, an older audience, I do need to make sure that it is easy to read. From there, I went ahead and I tweaked it so that my lines were a little bit thicker and came up with this version. So as you can see, a lot of these thinner lines on that other one were, I didn't want to make it too thick, but still enough that there was a little bit of contrast. But then I was looking at it and there's something about this one letter, the U, that was kind of, it was kind of bugging me a little bit. So the way that I created this was I just took the O, turned it, rotated it 90 degrees, and then just cut off the top half and then just added in these kind of, these just to make the U shape. But, you know, looking at a lot of the examples and stuff, it's not really common for the bottom part of this U to be thicker. And, you know, I kept it in there because I'm like, you know, well, it kind of goes with the whole moon theme. But then I thought, you know what, maybe it's just going a little bit too far in terms of uniqueness. So then I kind of fixed that up, and then this was the version that I ended up finishing with before I started recording kind of this portion of the video. So now the next step is going to be just cleaning this up and just then starting to play and deciding on the color palette for this brand, and then just kind of building this logo out so that it works in different formats. So like the smaller icon version of it for like social media profile images, and then a favicon, and then probably even like a horizontal version, because right now this is just very vertical. And so let's see what I can come up with. So before I go ahead and create all of my responsive logo versions for this brand, I have to clean up all of these letters, because right now they're just a bunch of lines and shapes stuck together and have these little white rectangles kind of hiding what I don't want to be shown. So here I am just kind of uniting all of the shapes and having to switch between the outline mode and then the regular mode so that I can see a little bit better what is, you know, as an outline and then what's created as an actual shape. After a while, it was actually just easier for me to stay in the outline mode, because I could see when the outlines were converted to a shape, and then I could see if, like with this letter A, for example, I had a couple of layers of them on there. So even though I turned one line into a shape, there was still another one underneath that was still as a line or a stroke. So that was kind of annoying to work with. Okay, now that I have all of those letters kind of cleaned up so that now when I put it into outline mode, let me see here, now they look like they're actual letters. I'm gonna go ahead and just reposition it with the actual icon that I had drawn, that I created in the last video. This what do you call it, the palm leaf and the ocean and the moon. I'm going to reposition it here because this one has still got the kind of uncleaned up, the draft version of the letters. And so I'm just going to fix it up, and then I'm just going to start building it out to make more of the responsive logo. So I'll probably go ahead with that same idea that I had before when I had the Luna Marea yoga kind of in this middle space here, and kind of go from there. So here I am just going back to that concept that I had kind of done with that pre-made font before, but just recreating it with this new custom type that I created. So I basically, because the whole outside, so the palm leaf and then that kind of an arched shape on the other side, it was all as one shape. I just copied that piece and then just took away some of the points on the palm leaf so that you could actually see the words a little bit better. And then from there, I decided to make a smaller favicon version. So this one needs to be a lot simpler than even that version there. That version might work still for social media profiles, but this favicon is that little icon that's going to show at the top of your web browsers, and so it needs to be very, very simple. And I just thought the best way to kind of show this concept was just to have the moon in that kind of an arched window shape thing. So that's what I did for that one. And here I am just kind of cleaning up the letters a little bit more. I noticed that after I united some of the shapes, there were still these kind of pieces that were sticking out from certain places. So I'm just going in right now and just doing that tedious work. Alright, so when all of my tweaking was done and I finished experimenting and created my responsive logos, this is what I ended up with. I have this original kind of lock-up where it's a little bit more vertical with the kind of the illustration on the top and the words on the bottom. And then I moved to a slightly more condensed version without the waves in it, but with the words there instead, and then an even more condensed version for this favicon. As you can see from the original one, I decided to flip the moon around because I don't know, I just, for some reason, this is how I see a moon, as facing this way, not the other way. So, and then on the very bottom, I just had this horizontal text-only version for the logo. So this is what I'm going to be working with when it comes to creating some applications for this logo design, such as social media, business cards, and whatnot. And I don't even know what else I'm going to be doing, but you know, if there's a time where she needs some event stuff created, this will be the logo that we'll be working with. So I know I did say that we were going to kind of work, or I was going to work on kind of figuring out the color palette for this, but because this video is already pretty long, I think I'm just going to start with that in the next video, and then work on applying this logo and the color palette on some things like maybe business cards, maybe Facebook branding. I'm not too sure, but one of those things. So but that is it for today's video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. We will see you next week.